877-217-5757 is your number. Jim at engstershow.com is our email address. Susan Nelson, Southern University law professor, is with us. She is no fan of Donald John Trump. She's a former communications director of the Louisiana Democratic Party. Today is 83 for Donald Trump as president. And on the right side of the political spectrum, Dianne Andrews, the dynamic host of the Dianne Andrews Show, a veteran television personality, and her show is seen statewide on cable outlets throughout the great state of Louisiana. 877-217-5757. We're going to cover some ground with our two guests, but it's been a bad week for Bill O'Reilly. He's been in the middle of a sexual harassment controversy after the New York Times reported that he and Fox News had reached several settlements of $13 million with female employees who claimed they were harassed by the notable host of The Factor. And now it is obvious that Bill O'Reilly's on the ropes, as most of his advertisers have bailed, and he is going on vacation. And the question many have is this a vacation, or is this the end of the trail at Fox for William O'Reilly? Susan Nelson, don't smile too much about this. You sound quite pleased that Bill O'Reilly has perhaps hit a roadblock that he cannot overcome. What do you think?
You know, I don't ever want to celebrate in people's struggles, but I think it really goes to show how much the buying power of the public and public sentiment is really driving decisions that large companies make these days. I mean, look at what happened to United Airlines yesterday because of the viral media storm. When people are upset about something such as sexual harassment, which is a big deal, you know, the companies have to respond these days, and this may be just the sign of the times for him.
Well, Bill O'Reilly has not been accused of any crime, but he has had a number of women claim that he sexually harassed them, and he tried to use his position to get sexual favors from them. Dianne Andrews, is this anything new for a powerful man to try to get sex from people in his orbit, or is Bill O'Reilly being picked upon unfairly?
Yeah, first we have to say purportedly tried to get sex from a woman. We have Bill Cosby. We have many names that we can throw out. And if he did do it, it's definitely wrong. If Bill Cosby is guilty, it's wrong also. And I guess you have to look at both angles. Some women do like men of power and do go after men of power. So the truth will come out over time, hopefully, just as Megyn Kelly left and Gretchen Carson left because they say Roger Ailes sexually assaulted them, and he had to leave. So I think it's a shame because Bill O'Reilly is the number one show in cable television, and I think the last 6 months it's been the number one talk show on television. So it obviously people are watching and people like what he says. His theme is I'm fair and balanced.
Yeah. Well,
I watch CNN and I watch Fox, and then I come somewhere in the middle. One may be too left and one may be too right.
All right. You don't watch MSNBC, I don't guess.
I do. I watch MSNBC also. I do watch Rachel. What's her name? Rachel Maddow show. And she's way to the left. So,
way to the left.
Yes, way to the left. Way too left for me. But I watch them all because that's, to me, how you get an understanding of what's really going on in the world with different sectors. Because we have liberal people and we have conservative people. We have people in the middle.
Well, O'Reilly's 67 years old. He's from an age when men got away with this sort of thing. The president is almost 71. And remember, we heard him on tape not so long ago talking about he was able to grab women in private places and get away with it because he's a celebrity. Men of power like this, does it just come with the territory that they think they can do whatever they want with whomever they wish?
And I think some women do allow that. I do, you know, I'm a female, and I do know women that will go after men of power and of money and of prestige. So sometimes we have to look at each situation, by the situation. It could be some for the woman. Now, what Donald Trump did, I think it was 20 years ago or quite a while ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago was brought up by Billy Bush, I think, who they ended up firing, didn't they?
Yeah, they fired him. He was egging him on.
Yeah, he was egging him on, and when he got off the bus, I have to let people know he was a complete gentleman.
Yeah, Trump was. Yeah.
I kiss you. And he said my wife wouldn't mind. So, you know, I know locker room talk also, but does it make it right or wrong? But he said nothing out of the way to the woman, and Billy Bush kept saying, which one of us would you take? Which one of us would you take? And as a married woman, she grabbed her hands around both of them and said, I'll take both of you all.
Isn't that sweet?
Yes.
Susan.
Like that when you saw it.
Susan Nelson, what do you think?
You know, there's a difference between locker room talk, which is abhorrent, yes, but yes, we know it goes on. As my husband dutifully reported, he said every guy talks like that. That's just his theory. But you know, when it starts impacting a woman's career in the workplace, that's where I think that's the issue. And you know, the companies, the sponsors of the show and the advertisers are saying we don't want to be associated with a corporate culture that minimizes the contributions that women can have in the workplace. It's just that we're past that. We're past allowing that in our society.
It is somewhat telling that Bill O'Reilly, who comments on everything, has not said a word about this. He's been totally mum about the allegations against him. Do you make anything of that, the good lawyer that you are, Susan Nelson?
Well, I mean, the lawyer in me says he probably was advised not to say anything, as I would advise anyone in that situation. And certainly maybe some of the agreements that they reach, some of the agreements to pay with, they have confidentiality clauses attached to them. So certainly he's probably been advised by counsel not to say anything.
Dianne Andrews, do you think he's an attractive man?
He was when he was young. He's about 6'5", 6'6".
You like that, huh?
And I'm 5'3". But I'm just saying, a lot of women, women like people of power, and they like to, they've done studies that the taller, more handsome, buff man can be more successful than the man of not those virtues. You've read those studies, Jim. So women obviously do have a tendency to go for the non-Napoleonic structured man. So so do I like it? My personal preference, I'm not going to say on the show. But did his wife leave him because of some of this? Do we know?
No, he's also alleged to have beaten up his wife, too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
How long have they been divorced? 10 years or shorter?
I think it was about 6 years ago.
Okay. So maybe he's a violent man, too, but at least these alleged people. But at least he's not Bill Clinton. He didn't do what the Democrat did on the White House, in the White House on the table.
Well,
on the desk. That we know of.
that we know. Well, he probably didn't do it in the White House. I don't think
White House, or maybe not in his
time in the Oval Office, but he is a tall man. He looks a little soft, though. I don't think he's in good physical condition. He talks tough, but he's not. But he's walking away. For a guy who's talked tough all these years to take a vacation in the middle of a crisis, that's not what a tough guy does. What do you think about that? Is he being a wuss by walking away, Dianne Andrews?
Well, I think the network told him to walk away. And I think, they do have, he's not a live question show like yours, but I do think for him to get out of the line of fire, I notice a lot of politicians do that. When it gets too hot, they go somewhere. They go to another country so they can't be asked questions about things. I think the network told him to leave right now.
All right. 877-217-5757. We're back in 2 minutes with more from Susan Nelson and Dianne Andrews on the Louisiana Radio Network.
It's always said around here that if you don't hear breaking news...
Are you running for governor?
Wait 5 minutes.
I do intend to run in 2015.
The Jim Engster Show on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Engster, 877-217-5757. Emily Gunn producing. On the right is Dianne Andrews of the Dianne Andrews Show. And on the left is adjunct professor Susan Nelson of Southern University Law Center. She's licensed to practice law in Louisiana, Massachusetts, and the District of Columbia. 877-217-5757 is your number. David in Atlanta. Good afternoon, David. You're on the Jim Engster Show.
Good evening. Good afternoon to everyone. Trump in the campaign was very critical of the Fed chairperson, and because she was keeping interest rates artificially low, according to Trump. Now today he's calling for a weak dollar policy, which means keeping interest rates artificially low, which is essentially manipulating the currency, something he's accused China of, and the World Monetary Fund has praised China for not manipulating their currency. But if we keep interest rates low, as this economy is expanding, we're going to have inflation, and that will certainly weaken the dollar, but also interest rates will go up, and the government has $20 trillion in debt to service, and the interest on the debt will really go up. And I just read an article between Social Security, Medicare, and interest on the debt in 20 years, it's going to consume the entire budget. So keeping interest rates low to me, is fiscal suicide, and there's a tradition of the White House not criticizing monetary policy, and there's a tradition of the Federal Reserve not criticizing fiscal policy. And
All right, Susan Nelson, your response to David in Atlanta.
You know, I read about that just earlier today, that he wanted a weak dollar policy. And I think one of the other motivations behind a weak dollar policy is that it stymies immigration. And as we know, President Trump doesn't want immigration into this country in pretty much any form. So, you know, I have to worry about where we're going to play in the world economy when our active policy is to keep the dollar weak.
Dianne Andrews, as we segue from the weak dollar to immigration, you have done some shows about this. What do you think about the president? Is he keeping his promise to secure our borders?
I think that the border crossings I read today, the actual apprehensions from border crossing are down 61% this year, the arrests from border crossings. And as we all know, Barack Obama sent more people crossing that border home than any president has ever, which is not known by a lot of people. But he sent and exiled a lot of people back to Mexico than any other president has ever. I wouldn't say, as Susan said, that he's against immigration in any form. I think he's against illegal immigration. And I don't know why, as being a lawyer and all people who are law, just citizens, why do we call it illegal? If I go take $5 from a store, I'm going to be arrested. And that's illegal. But let's not call it illegal if people want open borders, which I don't believe in. You cannot go to Mexico and think you're going to walk into their country and not be stopped. You can't go to Europe without a passport. We can't go into any country in the world without a passport. And if you're illegal, they're going to lock you up or send you home.
Susan?
Well, I think, you know, the Advocate even have a story today about the impact, or I'm sorry, the Business Report had a story about the impact on businesses who cannot find workers because they've routinely used immigrants in these particular type jobs. I think we're going to see a really big problem for businesses coming up. Things like the hotel industry, the construction industry, lots of industries rely on immigrants. And when we have talk about illegal immigration or legal immigration, when you take a tough stance on immigration, it makes all immigrants think twice before they come to this country. And we have a lot of immigrants who have made really positive input, contributions to our economy and to our society as a whole. And, you know, they're getting deported left and right, like the two neurosurgeons that were deported just a few weeks ago, who are doing groundbreaking research, but, you know, they couldn't make it through the visa process, so now they've been sent home.
Now, if you ask me if we think we should change and make it more simple maybe for immigrants to get to this country, because people may not know 50% of all people crossing the border are Mexican. It's not 80 or 90% who are Hispanic. There are a lot of Chinese that come across the border, a lot of people from Honduras and El Salvador, which is one of the violent criminal cities in the country, like what happened in Rockville, Maryland, with the 17 and 18-year-old boys who purportedly raped the 14-year-old girl because they were put in the school with freshmen in high school. So to me, there has to be, what is illegal really? What does it really mean in America versus...
All right. 877-217-5757 and Jim at EngsterShow.com. Here's an email from one Elbert Guillory, the former state senator. He says Democrats have released their latest anti-Trump rumors. They now say it was not the Russians who defeated Hillary Clinton, but instead it was the Martians. They contend the Martians aimed a special political ray at voters on their way into the voting booth. This special ray forced voters to vote Republican instead of for the failed policies of Hillary Clinton. These same high-level Democrat sources, writes Guillory, contend that members of the Trump transition team met with Martian agents. Democrats were happy to finally find a good excuse for losing the election to Donald Trump. Anything other than that, Americans just want Trump as president. A high-level Martian source denied these allegations and blamed the Democrats' loss on Uranus. Susan, your response to Elbert Lee Guillory.
Oh, Elbert Guillory, he's like, the aging octogenarian in the family who you just nod and smile when they talk and shake their hand and tell them to have a good day. And that's got to be pretty much the most bizarre thing I've heard today.
He's been named Director of Outreach for the Republican Party, Dianne. The GOP now has 22,000 members, black members, in the state of Louisiana compared to almost 800,000 black Democrats. Do you think there's going to be a flood of African Americans moving to the Republican Party in Louisiana?
I don't think so. But like me, I'm really still a registered Democrat, but I really am more independent than anything else. I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of women who even said they were in black and white. They were afraid to tell people who they were voting for, and they may be an independent or still a Democrat, but some of them did vote for Donald Trump, which he did obtain a lot more women than they thought, and some more blacks than they thought. We do have more political people getting into the Republican Party in the black community.
We're back after this pause on the Louisiana Radio Network.
The Jim Engster Show streams online and podcasts post daily following the broadcast online at jimengster.com.
Thanks for listening to Intelligent Talk for Louisiana. This is the Jim Engster Show on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Engster. Thank you for joining us. Emily Gunn is with us. She is our producer, and if you'd like to give us a call, that's the voice you'll hear first, 877-217-5757, or send an email to jim@engstershow.com. And Susan Nelson, adjunct professor at Southern University. She doesn't like Donald Trump a lot. And Dianne Andrews, host of the Dianne Andrews Show. The dynamic Dianne is a Trumpster. 877-217-5757, Jack in Baton Rouge. Good afternoon, Jack.
Yes, Jim, how are you doing today?
Fine.
Okay, my point is this, is that, I hear a lot about how these immigrants are building America and making America work and all that stuff. I don't believe that worth a darn. I think that if they raise the minimum wage a little bit, and maybe not to $15, but I think a lot of Americans who would take those jobs as well. But to say that America is going to fall apart because we have a tighter immigrant problem, I don't see it at all.
What do you think, Susan Nelson? Thank you, Jack.
Well, I didn't say America was going to fall apart, but I did say that they are a big force in our economy, and, for everything from migrant farmers to hotel workers to, a number of industries rely on immigrants. And not to mention, not just lower wage, I'm talking about higher wage as well. We've had H-1B visas in this country for years to attract scientific talent, surgical talent, all kinds of things for our country. So when we start getting unfriendly to immigrants, we do so at our peril. I didn't say everything would completely unwind, but we would be missing out on some great resources for labor.
All right, 877-217-5757. And here's an email from a listener asking about the New Orleans monument issue. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser is asking Donald Trump to stop and preserve those monuments, those Confederate-era statues that are about to be removed and perhaps destroyed by the mayor, Mitch Landrieu. Let's begin with you, Susan. Is Billy Nungesser doing a public service here?
I think largely monument placement should be a local issue, and so the fact that the lieutenant governor is getting involved in it, I understand from a tourism perspective, he certainly is interested, but, there has to be some sort of middle ground for the folks in New Orleans. I can kind of see both sides of this argument. They are part of our history. We can't ignore our history, but there are, to the same point, there are people who, don't want to see the monuments of people who oppressed them throughout history. So, I think there's some middle ground to be reached. Perhaps they could put them all in one location, like a Six Flags over Dixie kind of thing, and have all of the monuments there, maybe. I don't know.
Six Flags over Dixie.
Something like that where, they are retained for their historical value, but yet not placed in places of prominence for everyone to have to drive by on a routine basis.
What do you think of those monuments, Dianne Andrews?
I agree with Susan on the historical value. If you forget where you've been, you may be likely to those kinds of things reoccur. I just did Dianne Andrews in Black and White, my show. I just did 5 series show on the Silver Dollar Group. They were the most heinous group of the Ku Klux Klan. And I interviewed a lady whose father was a member of the group, and I brought in the black guy who her father tried to kill because he desegregated the Faraday High School system. So if we don't talk about what happened, don't see what happened, then it may continue to occur. A lot of those monuments make people think, oh, wow, this was terrible, what we did to black people back then. And then you do have those, as you all are talking about, who don't want to see them at all. So maybe Susan's suggestion is a good suggestion, but I don't believe they should be torn down.
Christine in Baton Rouge. Good afternoon, Christine. You're on the Jim Engster Show with Susan and Dianne. Hi, Christine. Emily, do we have Christine? All right, let's try Hold on, Christine. I think we can get to you. Mike, Mike in Plaquemine. Mike, good afternoon. Let's pull Mike up and see if we can get him on the air. Okay?
Thanks a lot for taking my call, Jim.
Okay. Okay, Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand why there's so much anger towards these illegal immigrants. I think there's more of this should be laid on contractors that knowingly hire illegal immigrants.
All right, you're starting to fade on us too, but don't go anywhere. Maybe we can get you to a better place. But Mike believes that there shouldn't be such anger at the immigrants themselves. It appears that there is some anger. People feel like these people are taking jobs. Susan?
Well, that's funny. That was a theme during the campaign. They made both arguments. They said that illegal or immigrants were using welfare and other types of benefits, and then they were also stealing their jobs. And I really had to stop people and go, look, they're either doing one or the other. They're either stealing your jobs or they're taking public benefits, because one who has a job isn't taking public benefits. So, people need to pick that argument, other than that they're just phobic of people from other countries. One of my good friends who lives in Atlanta was accosted just yesterday by a man who said he looked like he didn't belong here. And, he was really surprised that this kind of rhetoric was coming out when he is actually an American. He was born here in the United States. He just happens to be of Jewish descent and maybe perhaps doesn't look as American as people think he should.
Christine, good afternoon. I think we got you now. You're on the air.
Thank you. One of the things everybody is, ignoring is the fact that there is a word in the immigration fight that everybody's overlooking, and that word is illegal. And these people need to, most of the migrant workers and so forth have green cards, and they are here for a reason. There are nurses that come over from the Philippines that have green cards. They are legal immigrants. They are legal to work in the United States. The illegal immigrants, most of the time, don't take a lot of the jobs.
All right, hold tight. We're going to get Susan and Dianne to respond. Thanks for calling, Christine, and we're back after this 2-minute timeout on the Louisiana Radio Network.
It's always said around here that if you don't hear breaking news, wait 5 minutes. The Jim Engster Show on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Engster. Thank you for joining us. Emily Gunn producing, Susan Nelson and Dianne Andrews discussing the issues of the day, including immigration, Donald Trump. And if you have something else, fire away. 877-217-5757. Henry in Baton Rouge. Hi, Henry. You're on the Jim Engster Show.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Jim. Good afternoon, Miss Susan. Good afternoon, Miss Dianne. Mr. Jim, we heard during the campaign Mr. Trump going after our Mexican brothers and sisters. If we turn that clock back 180 or so years, people like him of his ilk would be going after us Irishmen. And I mean, it makes it a lot more personal when you see what it's like to be on the receiving end of these attacks. I just want to point out one little minor detail. God created earth, man built walls. So we need to see where our priority's going to be. Thank y'all very much.
All right, Dianne, would you respond to Henry in Baton Rouge? Dianne?
Yeah, just as I don't believe in open borders, I don't think Henry would either. Just like a house, we don't live out in the open for everything to happen to us. You have walls around your house, and I do believe in taking care of home first. One thing we don't talk about that Donald Trump has done a pretty excellent job of is helping some of the larger corporations decide, I'm going to stay in here, as Exxon is putting $20 billion into America for the next 10 years. Intel is putting $7 billion. And Ford, $10 billion. I can go on and on and on. So he has done something that other presidents haven't. If we have jobs in America that people can be trained to do, the coal industry, I don't believe will ever come back as to where it was. But maybe these coal miners can be trained to retool and do something in these industries that are coming back to America. And that's proven that he is doing that. I still believe that what does illegal really mean? And what does a sanctuary city really mean? In California, almost a sanctuary state. And we do have problems with illegal immigration, but just as we don't have problems with a lot of them either. But if I go, you may remember a long time ago in Singapore, this young teenager, white teenager who was over in Singapore, and he deflamed some of their walls. And did they give him like 50 slashes publicly and had him get out of their country?
All right. Susan, would you respond?
Yeah, and to her point that, we need, talking about immigration and you talk about job training, we're going to spend billions of dollars building a wall that we could actually use training these coal miners to work for these companies in these jobs. I mean, we have priorities as a country. So when people start harping on sanctuary cities, it's because the city's priorities are fighting crime, not stopping people and making sure they get deported. So, we have a limited budget. And we have to make decisions. So are we going to build a wall? Or are we going to help people train for new economy jobs?
877-217-5757 for Susan Nelson and Dianne Andrews. Jose in Baton Rouge. Good afternoon, Jose.
Yes, good afternoon. I recently moved down to Baton Rouge from New York. And I was a detective in New York for 15 years. And I've seen both sides of the immigration issue here and in New York. Now, New York is saturated with immigrants. It's so hard for the normal resident in New York to get a nice, decent job because you have so many immigrants in New York that are taking these jobs under the books. Like my father's been here from Puerto Rico for over 25 years. And it's hard for him to get a normal, decent job because they're taken. And in regards to the crime rate with immigrants in New York, it's out of control because you have so many illegals. I'm not saying all illegal immigrants are criminals, but in New York, it's just like the broken glass syndrome. If you leave a vehicle with a broken glass and you don't pay attention to it, you come back to that same vehicle 2 weeks later and it's stripped to the bone.
All right, Susan, thank you.
Except
Jose.
the numbers really don't bear out that argument. Illegal immigrants do not commit crimes at any higher rate than normal citizens. In fact, they commit crimes at lower rates than normal citizens because they don't get caught and sent back to the country they came from. So, this whole argument that they attribute to crime is just not backed up by the statistics. If you look at our country, the terrorist attacks that have happened in our country have overwhelmingly happened by white Americans that were born here. And so I don't know where this argument is that we have this problem with immigration and security.
Dianne?
I think he was talking specifically about New York. I don't know what the numbers are in New York, and I just wonder if you do also, Susan. But one thing I want to mention is you mentioned that someone cannot be on Medicaid or get government assistance and also have a job. Just as he talked about, a lot of people are paid under the table, especially illegal immigrants, where payroll taxes are not taken off. So a lot of them, some of them are on government assistance.
Not on Medicaid or Medicare, because you have to have a Social Security card to get that. So I don't know how they would be eligible for that.
Illegal immigrants do get Social Security cards.
And you also have to pay into the system. So
And how many of them voted in the last election?
I'm not going to go to that number that Donald Trump threw out, okay? I don't know. But in California, I have a lot of relatives out there, and they were saying there's places you can go. There are 3 things required to be able to vote, to have the Social Security card, the photo ID, or the ID and something else, and you can buy those things.
All right, so Trump really won California. Is that right, Susan Nelson? Did Trump win California?
The numbers don't say so.
No? Okay. All right, 877-217-5757. We'll have another segment with the dynamic Dianne Andrews and Susan Nelson, the adjunct professor of renown from Southern University. We're back after this pause on the Louisiana Radio Network.
The Jim Engster Show can be heard locally on great radio stations throughout the state and beyond, like Talk 107.3 in Baton Rouge, AM 1560, WSLA in Slidell, New Orleans, Talk Radio 960 AM in Lafayette, Abbeville, and KMBS 1310 AM in Monroe, West Monroe.
This is the Jim Engster Show on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Engster. Thank you for being with us. Please be safe on your drive home. And if you're so inclined, there's still time to give a call to the scintillating Susan Nelson and the dynamic Dianne Andrews on opposite sides of Donald John Trump, 83 days into this noble experiment with this man from Gotham City as leader of the free world. 877-217-5757. Melissa in New Orleans. Melissa, good afternoon. You're on the Jim Engster Show.
Hey there. Thanks for taking the call. So just a quick observation as I listen while I'm driving. The statement about the crime rates, not illegal immigrants, not having as much crime. I'm losing my words here, but isn't it if they're here illegally, aren't every single one of them at least breaking that law? And if they're doing, like the other woman said, acquiring Social Security cards illegally, that's another law that they're breaking. So by default, them being here, they are breaking at least that law.
Yeah, the statistics refer to violent crimes. So we're talking about crimes against people and crimes against property. Generally, immigration crimes to which you speak are not considered those types of crimes. But let's also bear in mind that someone is an illegal immigrant if they, for instance, come here on a visa and are going through the process of getting their citizenship or getting their permanent residency, and that process is held up by the process, they are in a sense, illegal while they're here. So they are also counted in those statistics. Even though they are legitimately going through the process to become legal, they are considered illegal while they're in that in-between period and are subject to deportation.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate your call. Thanks for joining the show today. And
thanks.
All right. And I heard Chris Matthews, of all people, the MSNBC commentator, say that the reason immigration hasn't been addressed in this country adequately is that Democrats want their votes and Republicans want the cheap labor. And several days a week, I can look outside the window here at Home Depot and see illegal immigrants lining up to go somewhere to work, and they're willing to do a day's work for a day's pay. But I don't see many people standing in line to arrest them. Susan Nelson, are we really getting serious about this, or is this just political pap?
Yeah, I think it sounds good. It's a good soundbite. I noticed we didn't really have this argument in the late 90s or in the early 2000s during the second Bush administration, because the Republicans really did rely on their labor market, and everyone just kind of said, we're not going to talk about immigration. But then suddenly when the Tea Party came in, this became sort of their cause de resistance, if you will. And, it doesn't make sense for our economy. The United States has always been an immigrant nation. So, I mean, quite honestly, we're all illegal immigrants if you ask the Native Americans who were here before any person showed up. So, at what point do we start making these determinations about who gets to be here and who has to go home?
Dianne Andrews, should we start patrolling five-star hotels and throwing out all the illegals who are working in places like that and send them back from where they came?
No, but I think they want to go after the people who have committed crimes is what I think that Donald Trump is going after. But my problem is, just as the woman said, and I said earlier, why call it illegal if we're letting anyone come in, we have open borders. And if you're letting open borders, if that becomes being a lawyer, Susan, if that's what you want to do, then don't call it illegal. Because then the laws have to change. As the other lady said, when you come into this country, haven't you committed a crime? And if we, again, can get a good workforce and get enough jobs in America, and whether it's skilled or unskilled labor, and let people have an access to come into America legally. And as you said, someone said Democrats want the votes and Republicans want the jobs. But also Democrats want the jobs also.
All right.
Who have businesses.
Last question from a listener about Sean Spicer. Should he resign as White House press secretary? Susan Nelson.
I have some very strong reservations about his comment that he made about Hitler not gassing his own people. So either he fails to recognize that German Jews were gassed, or that he fails to recognize Jewish people as people. That's wrong. And I think certainly he should not be admonished, he should lose his job, because this is a lot of anti-Semitism coming out of this administration, and it's taking a toll on the Jewish people. And we are a Judeo-Christian nation. We should respect those folks
he did apologize. Dianne, should he go?
You know, that's left up to the president. And we all say, a lot of people in public and private people say things that are stupid, and when you're up at the podium, sometimes things come out, or if you're talking publicly, as you and I probably have done some stupid things and said some stupid things ourselves, Jim. So that would have to be left up to the administrator. But I do want to say this. Barack Obama did more against Netanyahu when he tried to get him dethroned and not win the political race, and he didn't do anything for the Jewish people. When Netanyahu came over and talked to Donald Trump, and I think they have a very good relationship going, and has shown that he does support the Jewish community and the Jew.
And Obama did not?
Obama, what I read, with Netanyahu and him did not have a very good relationship.
No, but Netanyahu won a very close election. The Jewish population is somewhat fractured, just like the U.S. population is.
Yeah, but the Democrats during Obama were not supposed to be and did not support the Jewish community, I think, as Donald Trump wants to.
I think Jewish Americans voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton and for Barack Obama. Overwhelmingly.
Right, and New York, because New York is the largest Jewish
Well, there are also a lot of Jews in other places like Los Angeles and Miami, and even some in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, believe it or not.
And I'm sorry, there's saying something silly or wrong or off the cuff that you shouldn't say, and then there's being anti-Semitic. And I really think that Spicer's comment was anti-Semitic in nature, because it goes along with the group of people who want to deny that the Holocaust happened and deny that it was an issue for these people. So it was just as bad as Syria.
Okay, we got to go. But thanks for joining us, Dianne Andrews and Susan Nelson. And we'll be back after this pause on the Louisiana Radio Network.
Just another day of making history.
Donald Trump's going to fade. He is not a conservative. He's an egomaniac.
This is the Jim Engster Show on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Engster. Thank you for joining us today. And tomorrow we'll discuss the New Orleans monuments issue. Should be a lively conversation. Mayor Mitch Landrieu wants to do away with them, get them out of sight, perhaps destroy them. But there is opposition. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser even wants the president to intervene. He wants Donald Trump to intervene in the New Orleans monuments case. Can you imagine that? President, with all the things he has going, getting involved in something like that? Who knows? Might happen. We'll talk about it. Hope you have a great evening. We're back same time, same place. Stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to The Jim Engster Show. Follow Jim on Twitter @Jim Engster Show. Like Jim on Facebook @Jim Engster Show. Get more information on Jim and the show at jimengster.com. This program is intended for the sole use of our audience and licensed affiliates. Copyright 2016 Louisiana Radio Network. Any unauthorized use of this program material is strictly prohibited. This is a production of the Louisiana Radio Network.